Please join me in welcoming back to the stage our fabulous director, Ruth Lightman. Writer, activist, comm strategist, and whistleblower Nicole Moore. I'm the founder of Black Harlem Lives.
Yes.
Woo. Comedian Jay McBride, who entered the abortion access world as a comic on the 2017 Vagical Mystery Tour and followed that up as a writer for Abortion Access Front for a sweet stint. And Joelle Nicole Johnson, an abortion rights stan and anti-abortion extremist protest whisperer. It goes without saying, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to start off with Ruth.
I just have to look at them for a minute.
How about another round of applause for Ruth?
Another round of applause. And it is just so nice and refreshing to be able to laugh, to make us laugh. Thank you for that. I think we all need that right about now. So I just want to start with you. You talked a little bit about it in the panel, but how did you get to this story? And I mean, this film took a long time to make.
7 years. They got sick of me along the way. Election night 2016. I had met Liz 4 years before that. She was on MSNBC right after Trump was elected, and I thought, I'm going to need something to help me through this. So I really thought that it would be good to tell their story, to tell the story about what was happening around abortion access through the lens of comedy. Wrote to Liz, wrote to Nicole. I think Nicole convinced Liz that it might be a good thing to do. I'm sure she was like, what are they doing here? But no. Yeah, so it was, and we thought we would film for a year and then it would be over. And then it was actually here in 2018, we came here because this was a series. It was going to be a series for a little while under a different name. And I remember being in this very room, actually. And it was right when all of those all of that legislation started coming down the pike, and it was clear that we had to keep filming. And in this very room, there were, I think that some of the most brilliant women around didn't know that this was all coming down the pike, and so we had to make a film. It was important to make a film about the people who knew that this was going to happen, without making people feel bad about not knowing this was going to happen, and hopefully to energize people to get involved now.
One of the things I love so much about this movie is that I grew up on the coast, but I actually happen to live in Wichita, Kansas right now. And I love that you were able to showcase folks like the people at Trust Women, because I think that people think about, the middle as just a whole bunch of some of the people that we saw. But it's so amazing that you're able to shine a light on the people who are really doing the work. So thank you for doing that. But for you all, what was it like going on the road? What was it like being in these places? I'm sure you have some stories.
One of the things, like Omaha, we did Omaha right after Wichita. I think it was that same year, and like Wichita, it was like that's where Dr. Tiller was. Yeah. But people don't know us about Dr. Carhart. I don't know if they mentioned it. Like he was the doctor from Nebraska who had all the horse paintings and that. I don't think it was meant. He had a lot of people don't know this, but there was an attempt on his life as well. But what they did, they used kerosene to try and set fire to the house. What happened is they set fire to the barn and killed 19 horses. And just hearing that, and he's still doing that, and he's still there, and it's pretty somber when you see like they needed steps at that Omaha clinic. They couldn't get anyone to do it because it was an abortion clinic. So one of the things we did, we were able to find a local contractor who would do that, and it was something we're spoiled in New York.
I guess also rest in peace to Dr. Carhart as well.
no, he passed?
Yeah, he passed away
Oh.
recently, and I was so honored to have the chance to meet him and just talk to him about his story. My father, my deadbeat dad, was an abortion doctor, so I was kind of born into this. So when I found this work, I was like, "What? I could be a comedian and an activist? Yes!" And I feel like, especially, I'm a descendant of slaves and also civil rights family, and we always talk about what type of person you would have been at that time. And so now I know what type of person I would have been, and I am that person now. So it just makes me feel good to be able to have a cause that matters.
For me, I was in Montgomery, Alabama yesterday. I was in Alabama actually all last week, and I hadn't been there since we shot that first scene. That was 2017 when we were in Birmingham, and we also went to Tuscaloosa. And the scene with Joyelle and Gina and I, we were, that was when we were in Tuscaloosa. And you don't see what you don't see, and you didn't put in there, which I'm probably grateful for, is like right before that scene or right after, we're crying because the abortion providers were telling us this horrific story about this 12-year-old girl, and it's public. You can actually Google it. It made the papers. A 12-year-old girl who was raped by her foster family, and how just to try to get her an abortion was so hard then in 2017 because she had to wait 24 hours because the guardians that would have given her permission to get the abortion were the same people that violated her and raped her. And just the loopholes folks had to jump through at that clinic. So this 12-year-old child could get an abortion broke our heart. And to come back to Alabama 7 years later, and there's no abortion is outlawed in Alabama. So there are no abortions happening whatsoever. And I think about what 12-year-old girl is going through that same shit now who cannot get an abortion, and what are her choices? That murder mommy shit is horrible, especially for young girls, but it's 3, 4, 5 times harder for Black young girls. And it just broke my heart. And I didn't think anything could get worse. Oh, but the IVF situation in Montgomery where I was, and part of the reason I was there was to, what are the strategies? What do we have in place? And it is a sad situation. I can't say, I would say the one bright light is that folks in Alabama are so fired up. I would listen to the news every morning, and it would be one Black person after another, young people like running for office. Like, oh, my grandfather had a case against the Ku Klux Klan and actually won. And it's a true story. You can Google that. And this person is now running for Senate. And so people are fired up now to take over and to have their narratives and to reclaim their power. So I'm excited to see what happens politically. The fight is just beginning.
We saw a lot of fun shenanigans during this movie, and I'm sure there were a lot of things that we didn't see as well. What are some of the things that really stood out for you as like sort of a group of comedians coming together for this project?
Hi, cutie. Okay, this is a weird story, but it was one, I think it was Mississippi, where the guys came and they were protesting us. And then one of the guys was like that really big Black guy with he had like a flannel.
Birmingham.
Yeah. Oh, that's Birmingham?
It's all Alabama.
Oh, yeah. He was yelling at me, and then Ian Harvey, who was in the documentary, he tapped me on the shoulder. He was like, "Did you notice he had a heart on while he was yelling at you?" And I was like, "No, I didn't notice. I was not looking at his crotch." Dude was so like hopped up yelling at me and telling me I was going to hell that it gave him an erection. I was like, she ain't even include that in the movie.
It took a long time to explain. We cut it.
Is that why you said still got it?
Basically, yeah,
The best thing about humor, I'm not a comedian, so being with them, I'm the type, like I see your white folding chair. I went to the white folding chair yesterday. It actually is still on the dock in Montgomery. Wow. It was great. I'm the person that uses the white folding chair against folks. So it was great to have Joyelle and Jay, because I'm fired up, ready to fight. And they're like, "We got this, Nicole." And they would just look at the person and be like, "So your mama didn't love you?" I could tell. And it would make, and I would be like, "Oh," and it would infuriate them, because fighting them with facts, they get fired up and they're ready for that. They're not ready to be clowned on. And that's the best thing. It totally disarms them. And then once they're disarmed, then they would go in with the facts. And we would slay every time. So they would anyway. Yes.
You held your own.
Yeah, the one-liners in this movie, you guys, you nailed it. Do we have any audience questions? I want to open it up to. Yes. Do we have a mic? Yes. Just one.
I just want to know, were you afraid for your safety during this tour? It was on my mind throughout the whole film. And what precautions were taken?
We had a lot of actual bodyguards that would come. NAF would send the bodyguards to work with us, and there was one, Michelle, who was the absolute man, woman, all the things they them, and just felt so secure in Michelle's presence. Only once did I actually feel nervous, because I did all 16 cities on the Magical Mystery Tour, and there was one city, I might have been Little Rock or something, where the guy was like, "You will see judgment today." He was like, "Today the judgment's gonna happen." I was like, "Did you put a bomb under the stage? Like, what is happening?" So that was the one time where I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a dangerous work that we do." But every other time it would just be like preliminary, just like, "You going to hell?" Like, duh, like, you know, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Well, plus we're all 6 feet tall. I think that helps. So we're all giants, which is it's like a volleyball team coming to town. I did have, like, I remember, it's weird when you're sort of in there in the moment. I went to one of the protests earlier. We were counter protesting them, and when I got there, no one was there. But I did see one woman who was there holding up a sign just by herself, talking about being very pro. It's like saving abortion, but meanwhile she's surrounded by all these ghouls with these like dismembered fetus signs, and she was alone there. And at that point, you're just like, no, I'm not on my watch. And you get in there, you put that to the back, and I just stood next to her. And it was like, no, you want to yell at someone, yell at me, motherfucker. And then it's sort of like, parts it's scary, but also parts you're like, no, it's got to be done.
We were like vexed half the time. So it's like, even when we probably should have been afraid, we were more like, "Oh, we're going to kick your ass." Like, I remember in DC, that was the only time I was like, it was when, was it OSA was there when the big group came, and it was maybe 50 of us and 500 of them. And they love to target us in general, but they definitely target the Black folks in the crew, because they'll go after and say like, "Oh, you're anti-BLM," and get in your face about it. And again, I don't know how to like pivot that. And I'm almost scared, because once one of them gets fired up, it becomes like we saw in January, they become a mob, a chaotic mob, a violent, chaotic mob. So that was the one time. And then for me, after that, working with Liz, it was, we had a freedom to make decisions. So as you can see, I'm not in any of the later dates, because I was like, after that incident, when they were getting in my face, I said, I don't want to be on tour anymore, because I don't feel safe. And she absolutely heard me, saw me, and was like, "I see that. Stay in the office, do what you need to do." And that's the beauty about activism. You don't need to be on the road. You don't need to be on a stage. You don't need to be in harm's way. You can do what you need to do from your office or from your home and living room. So that was a pivot for me.
What about you?
I was afraid for the comics and the team, actually, because here I was, I'm filming. The antis definitely knew that I was aligned with them, but I had headphones on, and we had microphones, and we could hear a lot of things, in the crowd that the team couldn't necessarily hear. And it was really scary. There was actually one day, I don't know if you remember this, Jay, but I was driving you and Aparna around in Omaha.
I think it's Wichita. Yeah, maybe it's Omaha.
It was like it was like the high school baseball Hall of Fame. You couldn't get a hotel room in Omaha for like under
the World
4.
Series Hall of Fame. The
Yeah, it was
baseball
crazy.
World
And
Series,
I was like,
baseball World Series. Yeah.
And I was really sort of scared, because I was like, oh, there's all these men there was a lot of men. Like, the town was full of men and us, and it was a little scary. And yeah, there was just a lot of things that, for us, it was, we're making an observational film. So we're watching things and we're listening to things, but we're trying to, really be very hands off while also observing all of these things. And there were so many things that we saw that were that were really frightening, to be so close to Rusty Thomas and, his entire entourage, to witness a lot of, and we decided to really put a lot of that stuff, to keep that to a minimum. It's like, when you make a film about, extremists, how much of a voice do you want to give them? And we were very conscious about limiting that voice while also letting you see them. And Rusty gets some laughs.
I don't know if they were intentional laughs. He had technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So the question was about outing the folks on the January 6th folks.
I
And how
don't know
many
if
folks?
any of them were arrested, but little side note that's pretty awesome. So Coleman Boyd, the emergency room physician, which really like how he can even have a license to practice medicine, I have no idea. But he was actually just arrested on face charges. He was indicted on face charges. So recently, in the last couple of weeks, for a clinic in, I think this happened in North Carolina when this happened. So, they're starting to, make themselves known. That, they post this stuff all over the internet, and then they realize they could get arrested for it, and then they try to take it down. But between AAF and our team, we're constantly archiving these things. There's a lot of things that are in the film that have already been scrapped from the internet, but like Liz says,
Right here.
bitch, we got your shit.
Want to follow up on your question, on your comment about the things you could hear in the crowd that the others didn't necessarily hear. Was it an tenor of violence against the group? Like, what was the general? Like, they really
Yeah.
wanted,
Yeah, Black people, gay people.
And the second
Yeah.
part for the rest of you is, what was the most surprising aspect of the tour to you in terms of the anti, if anything?
Well, so a lot of them would bring their like adopted Black children with them, and they'd bring a lot of kids. And so sometimes I really enjoy dressing up in tutus, and I would just like dance in front of the kids. And there were a couple of times where the kids would be like reaching out to me, and the mother's like, "Don't look at her, don't look at her." And I looked at the little girl and I was like, "You like my dress, don't you?" And she's like, "Yes." And it was like, I realized that was what was important for me, because like they said in the film, like the kids are the ones we can save, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be like, "I remember that crazy girl in that tutu. She looked like she was having a good time. So maybe let me see what they were talking about," And I feel like we as a group are memorable to the younger generation, because those are the only ones that I can talk to. Like I'll talk to the 18-year-old boys and I'll be like, "Have you had sex yet?" And they'd be like, "No." And I'll be like, "Holla at me when you lose your virginity," So I just feel like we're in their minds. Just like if I made you laugh, I make the protesters laugh. And then it's like if they're young, they can change their mind. So yeah.
It's
I
funny
enjoy
to
that.
watch them crack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't want to laugh at me, but they can't help it.
Can't help it.
I mean, I would say, like, you already probably have an idea of how dumb they are, right? We say they're ignorant, and we say it all the time so much that you don't even know the levels. But what I discovered is that when we would challenge them with facts, they can't respond because they're reading. You could tell they've read a script and they're regurgitating from a script. I mean, we see it again with the IVF situation. Now they're like, "Well, we didn't mean this." And when they're questioned around like what, they don't know what conception is. They don't know what, they have no idea. They read a script, and I'm not even exaggerating. I believe that they are literally given a script. It is sent on email. They read it and they memorize it, and that is all they know. And they have to stay within those guidelines. And it's surprising to me how far they've gotten. That tells me that we weren't doing enough of our work, because they should not have gotten this far, because they are so not bright at all. It's literally a script. They're a cast and they're reading lines. And because they're reading lines and they're fervent in reading their lines with such consistency and ferocity, they've gotten this far. It also means that we can we can take them down because we know now that we know that they're really not bright at all. But it really was the most surprising thing to me because we just say ignorance, and ignorance is a lack of knowledge, but it's not even, it's beyond that.
On the other, oh,
Well, one of the things I noticed, I think you said you're from Wichita. Is that right?
I'm not from, I live.
Oh, all right. Good. Let's talk shit about Wichita. No. One of the things like going to these states, like really, again, I've lived in New York and LA, but never in the middle of the country. But like there are these places where they're just desperate for comedy, and they're desperate for people who aren't like these assholes. Like, there are people in Kansas and Nebraska that are pro women, that are pro abortion, that are pro LGBTQ. So I mean, it's like you see these, you're like, and you realize like you just want to help them out, and you feel so bad for them.
Yeah, my
so.
other question to you, like as a counter to that, like what were some of the most surprising things that, like, because you really put a human face on some of these folks, especially the woman in Alabama and or Mississippi, but a lot of these people, they're humanizing their work is so important. So
Right.
I know we don't have a lot of time, but like just maybe what was something that you took away from meeting some of those folks?
It was just amazing, like the fact what they have to go through in these places. Like we were at South Bend. Actually, Buttigieg came by to visit when we helped open their clinic. But it was like it took years to get this clinic open, like years. It was just different lawsuits, one right after another, trying to force them. And these like 90% women are just so strong and so determined, and you're just like, you got to respect it, because like again, we're spoiled on this side, but you see them putting up the fight, you're like,
That clinic was open for a minute.
yeah, and then then they got.
And they love to have fun. They're they're regular people who love to have fun, but they can't tell folks, and some people can't even tell their families where they work. One, because of stigma, but two, because of security reasons.
Right.
I can't even imagine, I'm passing out business cards and putting on LinkedIn where I work all the time. They can't do that, but they still have a sense of humor. They still have a great sense of passion. They still are in this fight, and they love to be loved. That line, and I've seen this 3 times, and I just realized today when Dr. Carhart says, "Thank you for being." I'm glad. I was happy to be around people who that
We're nice.
who are nice. Right, that's what's it. That is profound.
We are out of time, but I want to make sure. Oh, did you have a question?
Oh, I did. One of you had referenced education, and what is jumping out of this is the total lack of, we know what our sexual health education system is like in the country, or lack thereof, and that in some states, sexual education is mandated, but it doesn't have to be technically or medically accurate. You can also check that on the internet. It is true. So I'm curious how much of your movement is about education. The sexual assault, that's one whole piece, but people don't know how babies are made. And certainly the antis don't know anything about anything. So how do you, there's a big, no one's ever said my voice didn't carry. So yes, okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So how do you fit education into this? Because I think you're very kind. I agree to call them ignorant. That's insulting to ignorant people to put them in the same category. There's so much that needs to be done. You guys are after there's already a problem. Do you know what I mean? People after the fundamental lack of education. And again, I'm putting sexual assault on the side, but birth control, options, day after pill. No one seems to know anything about anything. And then you're dealing with these numbnuts who really are like robots.
Right. I would say more than 50% of the work that we did at AAF was around education. Like you see clips of the videos, the one with Beyonce, the formation. Listen to the lyrics though. They're all about trap laws in specifically in Louisiana. What are trap laws? And maybe I can't remember. Tell me, what's trap again?
Targeted.
Thank you, Renee. Right, I get all my acronyms mixed up. But it teaches trap laws. The video of Solange sitting on the toilet was about birth control and the abortion pill. And so we do that, and Liz is a genius at doing that, using humor but using video. So if you go to Abortion Access Front's YouTube page, you'll see a series of videos that we've been doing for years around education and using comedy and humor, but it's all about education on what things are.
Yeah. And also, yeah, to piggyback on that, speaking of Beyonce, we have the Beyonce of abortion, Renee Bracy Sherman here, who testified in front of Congress and said how to take the abortion pill specifically for that education.
Which our
So-
team watched over and over
Yes.
and over and wept
Oh, yes.
and wept. And that was
Watching
the
that on a
most
laptop.
necessary and radical act ever.
And also teaching people like how to do an abortion on a papaya, like that. That's silly, but it's also, you know, we're learning education. So we do put the education into the comedy.
That's a great question. And that leads me to my question, because this is a film that people need to see. So what do you need? How can we help you? What are the plans? Tell us what we can do.
Please join our website and follow us. Go to nooneaskedyoudoc.com. Please do that. And there's actually QR codes out there. Please follow Abortion Access Front as well. We are raising funds for an impact campaign to, join with AAF leading through the election. And we have a lot of schemes. We have a lot of hijinks coming up. A lot of really fun stuff, because we have a country full of people who were surprised. And that's, in large part, Liz is amazing and the team is amazing, and they wanted to, get people engaged. And we have to get people engaged now. It's not too late. I think there's a lot of fatigue around activism, but it's not, it can't be too late. If you want to have autonomy in any way in this country, you have to get engaged. So please follow both. If you know anybody who wants to radically change the way we talk about this issue and help fund our impact campaign, we have big plans for all of that. The DNC is in Chicago this year. Our team is based out of Chicago, so we hope to have a major presence there. And on college campuses, we're going to be on college campuses all over the country. We're going to have lots of events online and in person. This is a film that can bring together, the most diverse audience, age-wise too. There's a big disconnect generationally around this issue, and people have uteruses, at many ages. So yeah. I don't.
I do. It's under the bed. It's in a jar of formaldehyde. I don't bring it
It's
out all
pickled.
the time.
Well, thank you so much for making this film.
Thank you, Leela. And thanks to Athena for having us. And thanks to these three, because I'm in awe, really. And Liz is sad she couldn't be here. And we're sad she wasn't here too.
Thank you.
Thank you.